Hey guys! So today we are going to talk about congruency, and um, I want to explain that when we left school for our extended break, we were not finished with the geometry unit yet. So I know it seems like we're doing a lot of like going back and forth. We finished transformations, and then we went to solving equations, and then exponent rules and scientific notation. I mean, we've done so many different things. And I want to explain the reason for that is because I didn't want to try and force us to learn anything that was extremely new. Excuse me. um, when we weren't in school, because we were only out for 3 weeks and then we'd be back and we were going to review anyways for state testing. But now it appears we're out for another month, so we are going to have to keep moving forward and learning what we need to that's new. So, congruency is not new to us. We have discussed the definition of congruency, and you've known this from seventh grade, um, that things are congruent when they have the same shape and the same size. So, basically, they're like clones of each other. Um, so we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about that, and I'm going to try and keep it as short and sweet as possible, but there's like a lot of information packed into a little bit of time. So here is a picture I drew, and it's not exact, but it doesn't matter. You're going to be given information a lot of times in geometry where it doesn't look like they're congruent, but they tell you that it is, so you have to believe that it is. So up here is our statement, and we know the congruency sign from when we did triangle angles and the parallel lines and transversals. So that's the congruent sign. So this statement up here says ABC is congruent to DEF. So really what that's saying is that this triangle here is congruent to this triangle here. Now, there are some important things about congruency that we haven't been able to discuss, and these are like the details that you need to know for this. So, first of all, when a question asks you if something is congruent, like it's asking if ABC is congruent to DEF, and you have to say yes. Well, you have to make sure you say things in the same alphabetical order as what it was before. So that's why here it says ABC is congruent to DEF, and the sides are all matching together. So A matches with D, B matches with E, and C matches with F. These all look like they belong on the same angles, and they go in the same alphabetical order. So that's the first thing I wanted to cover. Now, a lot of these questions that you're going to be doing are asking how figures are related by transformations. And we finished transformations. Luckily, the only transformations you have to worry about are translations, reflections, and rotations, because dilations make an image bigger or smaller, and so that makes them not congruent anymore. So you only have to worry about 3. So I'm going to be doing a lot of like rough drawing, and it's not going to be the greatest. A question might ask you how these two triangles are related. So these are 2 triangles right here. This is TVW and UVX. So they would ask you in a question how these triangles are related, and obviously they're not translated because they're not facing the same direction. Translated would be like it just moved. So you have 2 to pick from, reflection and rotation. Anytime you see something that looks like a mirror image like this, it would be a reflection. So this triangle right here is reflected onto this one right here. It's telling you they're both congruent. What transformation got them to be congruent? You would say a translation, because it just moved from here to here or moved from here to here. I don't have it labeled enough for you to see. The other one would be a rotation. So let's just keep that same triangle, and I'll show you what the difference would be. So here's a rotation. Let's say it started here. It rotated either clockwise or counterclockwise, upside down. This doesn't look like a perfect reflection. It is definitely a 180-degree rotation. So that's one of the first things that you need to know about congruency. Okay, so here we have this picture right here that I drew so beautifully for you. And let's say the problem said these two triangles are congruent. So we have RST and DEF. You're supposed to put them in alphabetical order, so that took me a minute. It is going to ask you which sides are congruent, and it is labeled very clearly with all these little lines. So here is RS right here. It has this little 1 slash through the side. Which side would be congruent to RS on the other triangle? We'll look for the side on the other triangle that has the 1 little slash, which is this one right here. It would be DE. So then you would select the option or write the option or type the option that says RS is congruent to DE. So that would be what your answer would look like. So same thing with these little angles. See how angle E has these 3 little lines in it? Well, it matches on the other triangle with the other angle that has 3 little lines in it. And the other angle is angle S. So angle E is congruent to angle S. So you would write angle E is congruent to angle S. Would like to also show you some non-examples of congruency. So let's look at this right here. So it wants to know if these two squares are congruent. So hopefully when you look at these two squares, you would tell me no, they are not congruent. So if you think about why they're not congruent, well, they are the same shape, right? They're both squares. But in order to be congruent, they have to be the same size. These are not the same size. This one's way bigger than this one. So that would be a good non-example. Alright, so here we have an example with numbers. So this is a more complete shape. These are both congruent. This is ABCD and this is EFGH. ABCD, EFGH. You might be able to tell already that these are related to each other by reflection, but if you can't tell, that's totally okay because this is a drawing and it's really hard to tell when it's not typed. But there is some important information here. So if you look, 2 of the sides are labeled on this quadrilateral right here. We have this is 55 and this is 2. And then an angle is labeled, this is 7. Now on this quadrilateral, which is congruent, the only thing you have labeled is 2. But you can use this as a clue to tell you where the rest of the information goes on this shape. So if you know this is the shortest side here, and they're congruent shapes, and this is the shortest side here, well, the other side across from it is 55. So across from here, EH would be 55. This also makes sense because this is ABCD. A and D are the first and last letters in order of this, and this is EFGH. E and H are the first and last letters. So they normally label these in alphabetical order, so that's a really good way to tell what goes here. Now, if 55 goes here, we also have to figure out where this angle 7 goes. So the second letter in this is B, well the second letter in this is F. So that's a really good way to tell that this is going to be angle 7 right here. So you'll have an edge elastic. It's going to be 10 questions. They're all kind of, I would say, more difficult questions that you really need to take your time and think about before you select. So take your time, make sure you're doing it correctly because it does go in your grade as what your percent is or what number of questions you got correct. It's not over completion. So take your time, do your best. Bye.